Hi, and welcome to the Good Goobyes Funeral Myth-Busting podcast. On the show, you will hear us, your hosts, Simon, a funeral director, and Tina, an independent celebrant, chat about all things funerals, death, and dying to help you navigate the planning of your good goodbye for yourself or the people in your lives.
Sometimes we have funeral industry guests, and sometimes we just chat through funerals, death, and dying. We do this with kindness and sometimes humour. We're based in Devon in the UK, and we hope you enjoy the show ahead. Hello, welcome to Good Goobyes. It's Tina here, and I have a guest with me today. I have Colin with me, and Colin is from Heavenly Stars. So we're going to be talking about some really great stuff today. Colin, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, Tina.
And can you tell us about Heavenly Stars and what is it?
So we're a traditional firework display company providing consumer and professional fireworks in the UK and beyond. Some time ago, in the early 2000s, we were approached by a client requesting that would it be possible to put some cremation ash into a rocket, which he could then fire himself for the family and friends at their ceremony. Obviously, we're a bit skeptical about it, not having heard it happen before, but went ahead with his wishes, did it, and suddenly thought to ourselves, hold on, this is actually quite a fantastic idea and makes a bit more of a celebration out of potentially which could be an otherwise event. And the business has escalated from there. We're now 23, 24 years further down the line. And it's amazing, the feedback and how many we do.
Yeah, incredible. So before we get really explosive then and talk about all things ashes in fireworks, have you got a favourite firework?
Like I said, we import predominantly from China, but we do import some European products as well. And my particular fireworks come from Spain. They're very vibrant colours and effects that are specific to the Valencia area of Spain. So my favourite is an aerial shell. So one of the ones that are launched from mortars that go 400 or 500 feet into the sky. And the effect description of this one is a farfalla with red crown to report. So it's big silver swirly stars with a red cluster of stars in the middle. Then each one of those swirly stars explodes. It's very specific to the Valencia region, and that's certainly my favourite.
Now, what you can't see, listeners, because this is a listening to podcast, is Colin is waving his arms around and he's demonstrating for me what this might look like. So your imaginations can go wild now, really. So for anyone hearing about this for the first time, how does it work? How do you get your person's ashes into a firework?
Yeah, so obviously we've got a substantial online presence on via our website, heavenlystars.com, and social media platforms. We also deal with funeral directors. So they all have our literature and information. And it's becoming more and more known that it is a thing that you can do either at the deceased wishes or at the family's request. We get an inquiry. We get some strange ones. Can we do this? Can we do that? There are limits to what we can and can't do legally. Then the process just escalates from there. I mean, some people wish to have just a single rocket with a small proportion of the cremation ashes, and other people wish to have a professionally fired display where we take control of the entire event and are able to incorporate and distribute the entire amount of ash.
And fireworks, it feels very celebratory.
Yes.
Why do you think people choose them for a funeral? Sort of bright and bold farewell, that kind of idea.
Yeah, I mean, I've done quite a lot of these now, and you can never preempt what it's going to be like. Some are quite somber events, very close-knit, few family, friends. Others are, basically a party, a celebration of life, and it's either at the person's request that they've got a favourite place, perhaps, or they really enjoyed fireworks and it was their intention to go out that way, shall we say. So there's lots of different reasons, and like I say, you can never preempt what it's going to be like. You get a general feel from the inquiry and obviously dealing with the family beforehand. But until you actually arrive at the event, then you never really know. But some, like I say, some are fantastic. We've had some, the displays, the professional shows that we do are generally quite short in duration, perhaps 2 to 4 minutes. It's not like a full-on Guy Fawkes display. It's more specific. It may have favourite effects, favourite colours. Like I say, it may be at a favourite location where the people have been in the past, perhaps a favourite beach, that type of thing. So the displays can be quite abrupt but very spectacular, and we've had shows where people just cheer relentlessly from start to finish, and it's on the whole, I think it's more of a celebration of life. And once people realize that it is a thing that you can be done, it can happen, that it's just a great atmosphere. Everyone thoroughly enjoys it.
Do you always conduct the display happening on the day, or can people have a single firework that they can light themselves?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we do, like I say, there's two sides to the business. So there's what we call our self-fire packages, where we collect the cremation ash from the client, we incorporate it into their chosen fireworks, and then they're delivered back to them for them to fire at will when they wish, at their own sort of choice. And then there's the professional side of the business, where we have to, obviously, if they've chosen a location, we have to liaise with the location owners, get all the necessary permissions, conduct a site visit, all that sort of thing, and do all the boring side of it, shall we say, all the necessary paperwork. But yeah, to ensure that it can go ahead safely and happily on the day, because obviously the last thing we want is for their event to be disrupted in some way, shape or form. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes beforehand to ensure that it all goes ahead.
Yeah. And you say you get some unusual requests. What might be unusual?
Yeah, I mean, we've location-wise, we get, each to their own. Who are we to justify what can and can't happen? But we've had pets as well as incorporated with their owners' ashes, so that sort of thing. Locations sometimes are a bit difficult. We deal with a lot of councils and landowners to obtain permission, and sometimes that can be quite difficult. But yeah, I think the pets one is probably some of the strangest requests, because obviously there's a limit to the amount of ash we can incorporate into each firework. All our fireworks that are chosen have to be tested to get the competent authorities, so that firework still performs as it should, with the added weight of the cremation ash, and that's limited per product.
Yeah. And I guess if you wanted, therefore, if I was somebody who loved my local football club, and I want my firework to go off over the football club, is that when it can get a bit tricky and you just need to get those permissions?
Exactly that. I mean, we have been asked to do exactly that scenario in a football world, cricket ground, rugby pitches, and on the whole, like I say, we've been doing this over 20 years, and I can only think of a couple of occasions when we've been refused. And that's usually down to a pedantic groundsman or something that's unsure of what the after effects of the event may be. But we've been able to prove that the after effects are minimal, if anything. So, no, on the whole, it's let's say that anything is possible if we try hard enough, I'm sure.
And family involvement, Colin. So I'm having this event. You're coming to do my firework display for my loved one. Can we get involved, as in like do the countdown? I presume we're not allowed, if it's a more public display, to do any lighting. How does that bit work? Yeah,
I mean, to be honest, the amount of involvement that the client have is endless, and we prefer it to be that way. Specific colours, that type of thing, we can accommodate as best we can. And certainly some people like to, on the day of the event when we turn up to set the fireworks up, some people like to come down and have a look before they're fired, so that and every firework will be labelled up with the client's name or any requests. We ask them if there's any specific messages they would like. A lot of people just choose for in loving memory, but some of them are quite particular in their messages, and believe you me, we've done all sorts. And like I say, they'll comment on those, but we often laugh in the office when we request the any specific messages, and when they come through, we're always surprised, and it's actually quite funny. A lot of them are very amusing, very obviously specific to that client, but nonetheless, it's quite amusing sometimes in the office. But yeah, I mean, as regards to their involvement, we want to encourage that. You know, the more engagement we have with the customer, the better. We understand that to us it's a business and a process, but to the client it's very, very specific, and we want it to be as momentous as we can make it.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're dealing with it so sensitively. And I know what you mean about amusing things. And I love the idea of personalising, because as a Celebrant, and on the podcast, we really encourage people to know that they can personalise something. And if their person said "hey up" all the time and they want that to be part of it, then that's absolutely fine. There's no right or wrong. If they want it to say "let's go down the pub" or "it's your round," it doesn't matter. It's all fine.
Well, one we get quite often is, "you always told us you was going to go out with a bang." That type of, amusing side of it. And very often, if we request the messages, so we print the labels beforehand, which are stuck on the firework at the point of incorporation. But sometimes they haven't decided, or so we just provide them with blank labels. So then on the day they can all handwrite them, and then they or we can then stick them on the fireworks, and on the day. So it just makes it a bit more personal to the client.
Yeah, what a lovely idea. And like you say, you probably give them ideas about the different types of fireworks, the colours, and you can do something that goes with someone's personality. Yeah,
certainly. I mean, the website has got sample videos, and very often people will choose off that different packages, different types of fireworks, and then some people will request a slightly longer display using normal fireworks, and then the cremation ash will be incorporated in the last 30 seconds of the display. Some people want it at the beginning of the display, so no two are the same, and we just take one on a day-by-day personal basis.
Yeah. So let's clear this one up then. So if you're launching someone into the sky, it's like being like a superhero, isn't it? Really, they're just up they go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, depending on the type of fireworks, the consumer fireworks on the whole, so what we call our self packages, the ones that we return to them, they fire themselves, are just normal consumer fireworks that you could walk into any fireworks shop and buy. And like I say, albeit our ones that we use for ash dispersal have been tested to ensure that with the additional weight, they still operate and function as they could. Because obviously the health and side of it is very important to us. We don't want there to be any issues as a result of what we're doing to these fireworks. And anything that we do to the fireworks in respect of adding the cremation ash has to be done at a proper licensed premises. It's done under the strictest controls, to ensure that that's done in the right way. And obviously these function anything up to 50 to 60 feet in the sky. And if we go to the professional side, they're going up 400, 500, 600 feet in the sky. So, that's when the site visits and things come into play to ensure that we have got the sufficient space, safety distances, and that to allow these to go ahead.
Yeah. And is it weather dependent? What's the situation with the weather?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, yes. But I mean, I've been working for Heavenly Stars and Dynamic Fireworks for 25 years. I've fired probably now about 1,200 professional displays for them. And in that time, I think I've only had to cancel about 4. There's lots of things that we can do to a firework display before it gets to that point of cancellation. Rain isn't an issue. All the fireworks can be fully waterproof so that they function as they would in dry conditions. Wind is obviously our biggest enemy. You can fire or amend the display slightly in up to certain wind speeds, but when it gets above that point, then it does alter the flight path and the trajectory of fireworks. But that's an extreme case. There's many things we can do to ensure it happens safely, swap the site around, that type of thing, to ensure that it goes ahead.
Yeah. And I think that, people just listening need to know that we're all very adaptable, and you really know your subject, and you're very experienced, and it's always just a case of asking and seeing and knowing that you're going to be well looked after from a safety point of view, as well as a kind of making it all work well.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of the risk assessment and the site visit is not just turning up to ensure it's safe. It's the liaison with the client and reassuring them that we'll do the utmost best that we can to ensure that their event goes off without a hitch. We want it to be perfect, and that we strive to do that.
How many people do you help have fireworks to remember somebody in a year?
So the self-fire packages we're doing on a weekly basis. So, a quiet week is, 1 or 2 orders, and a busy week can be 6, 7, 8 orders. And we find that it often goes with the typical fireworks seasons as well. So if somebody was a firework person and that was their last wish to be incorporated into fireworks, we find that the run up to Guy Fawkes is when we suddenly get very busy because people want the fireworks for firework time. And the same with New Year's. We find that New Year's Eve can be quite a busy time for us as well with that side of the business. But I mean, it's generally spread out throughout the year. I mean, like I say, it's not always the case that it's a person that's died recently. Sometimes these people have had the ash at home for quite a while and suddenly are made aware of what we can do, and they see it as a good time to perhaps get the family and friends together again and celebrate this life and do something appropriate for them.
Yeah, I think you're raising such an important part of this actually, because on the podcast we talk a lot about doing something with the ashes and how a lot of us might just let them sit in the cupboard for ages. The other issue with ashes is, of course, especially if someone died during COVID, some people are still feeling like they didn't get that goodbye. And you might, if listeners are listening and you've got the ashes at home, you might like to think about something like this. And, you could do something on someone's birthday. There's those other times of the year that you were saying. So yeah, definitely worth thinking about if you still have ashes around. And you don't need a lot. If you've split the ashes and some are in another part of the country with somebody else, you don't need a lot of ashes, do you, Colin?
No, you don't. I mean, we've done it with as little amount as a teaspoonful.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's a token gesture. Sometimes it's like I say, the total amount. Some people are very reluctant to give up the entire amount, which is, we totally understand that. But on the whole, we're finding that most people do keep a small proportion for themselves, and that may be for something that they wish to do at another time, at a quiet time, just alone and just with family. But on the whole, we're finding that we predominantly use nearly all of the ash on most occasions.
So coming towards the end of the podcast now, is there anything you want to say that you haven't said already about ashes and fireworks for people to know?
No, I mean, like you just rightly said about, some people have this urn of ash sitting tucked away in a cupboard somewhere, and it's obviously from our point of view, it's a business, but from people's points of views, it's very particular if you've got a favourite holiday location or somewhere where that particular person liked to go or frequented often. We're more than happy to do the legwork, shall we say, and obtain the necessary permissions. We always look at it as a celebration of life, and making an event out of what sometimes can be quite a morbid event. And, and that's, I think fireworks they lend themselves, we can incorporate music to the displays as well. So a favourite soundtrack, favourite piece of music. There's lots of different ways we can work with a client to ensure it's what they want. We've done, over the years, we've done quite a few famous incorporations. The Italian chef Carluccio, we incorporated he had a favourite piece of Italian music. We incorporated his cremation ash and fire to his piece of Italian operatic music in a lovely location in Sussex. It was amazing, and the family and friends travelled from throughout the world to come, and they were all gobsmacked that such a thing could be done and how dramatic and impressive it was. Because fireworks are under a lot of scrutiny at the moment for various reasons throughout the world, and this is one way that we can ensure that hopefully fireworks are still a thing in years to come.
Yeah, well, it's so good to know all of that. So, your own send off, then, Colin. What you having?
I think I'd have to be in a very noisy display. I think the noise levels of fireworks are under a lot of scrutiny at the moment. I'd like to think that of all the displays I've done them justice. I always strive to do the best I can with every display. So I'd like to be in an extreme short and sharp, 2 minutes at the most, but high caliber, big caliber aerial shells throughout the display, and get me up into the stars that way.
Lovely. And what colours are you going for?
Probably the traditional, like everyone sees in a firework finale, the big golden brocade stars that cascade a long way down. So, golden brocade with what we call a fuchsia pistol. So it's the centre of the firework, the very epicenter of the explosion. I've got lots of fuchsia pink stars with the big golden brocade bursts all around it.
Sounds amazing. Well, let's hope that's a little way off. But
Who knows?
Who knows? It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, Colin. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us. And for our listeners, we'll put all the details so you can find your way to Heavenly Stars and Colin and the team in our show notes. And we're also going to have a link for you to look at a display so you can see an example. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Good Goodbyes. We hope you found it helpful and informative. Please do leave us feedback, other topic suggestions, and subscribe for a regular listen and like and share if it all helps the show.
We're always interested to know what topics you like us to talk about, so do reach out to us if you have any ideas. If any topic leaves you thinking you need additional help or support, please do seek out professional advice. Take care and be kind to one another.